Hi, friends. Welcome to Pieces Here. I'm Avis Kalfsbeek, and we're taking a little rest between podcast series to help Kitty O'Compost improve her reporter voice for peace. Kitty is a character I made up who's a little offbeat, a satiric smarty pants, and she's getting ready to report on a big story about peace, AI, and the future of the commons. It's called Control AI Disarm. At the end of these Kitty Reads episodes, and maybe longer, you'll also hear the Next Peacelands, a roll call of global armed conflicts and arms exports. If that's too much for today, it's okay to end early. But if you can stay, I hope you'll let it deepen your resolve for peace. As usual, you can find the words and books I make for peace at aviskalfsbeek.com, and podcast music is by the talented Javier Peque Rodriguez. Listen for the peace. Now over to Kitty. Today's reading comes from Mark Twain, a man who could take a plain little moment and twist it just enough to make you grin. How I Edited an Agricultural Newspaper is one of his latter pieces, a bit of gentle mischief about a fellow who wanders into a job he's not quite prepared for and does his level best anyway. We'll read just a small portion today, enough to catch the tone of Twain's wink and the way he liked to poke fun at human confidence. Well, sugar, I could read the first line of a novel or the handwritten note someone left on the community bulletin board. Either way, we'd still be making room for peace. Sometimes the small pause is the big miracle, especially when nobody, for goodness sake, is holding a gosh darn gun. Following is an excerpt from How I Edited an Agricultural Newspaper by Mark Twain. I did not take temporary editorship of an agricultural paper without misgivings. Neither would a landsman take command of a ship without misgivings, but I was in circumstances that made the salary an object. The regular editor of the paper was going off for a holiday, and I accepted the terms he offered and took his place. The sensation of being at work again was luxurious, and I wrought all the week with unflagging pleasure. We went to press, and I waited a day with some solicitude to see whether my effort was going to attract any notice. As I left the office towards sundown, a group of men and boys at the foot of the stairs dispersed with one impulse and gave me passageway, and I heard one or two of them say, "That's him." I was naturally pleased by this incident. The next morning I found a similar group at the foot of the stairs, and scattering couples and individuals standing here and there in the street and over the way watching me with interest. The group separated and fell back as I approached, and I heard a man say, "Look at his eye." I pretended not to observe the notice I was attracting, but secretly I was pleased with it and was purposing to write an account of it to my aunt. I went up the short flight of stairs and heard cheery voices and a ringing laugh as I drew near the door, which I opened and caught a glimpse of two young, rural-looking men whose faces blanched and lengthened when they saw me, and then they both plunged through the window with a great crash. I was surprised. In about half an hour, an old gentleman with a flowing beard and a fine but rather austere face entered and sat down at my invitation. He seemed to have something on his mind. He took off his hat and set it on the floor and got out of it a red silk handkerchief and a copy of our paper. He put the paper on his lap, and while he polished his spectacles with his handkerchief, he said, "Are you the new editor?" I said I was. "Have you ever edited an agricultural paper before?" "No," I said. "This was my first attempt." "Very likely. Have you had any experience in agriculture practically?" "No, I believe I have not." "Some instinct told me so," said the old gentleman, putting on his spectacles and looking over them at me with asperity while he folded his paper into a convenient shape. "I wish to read you what must have made me have that instinct. It was this editorial. Listen and see if it was you that wrote it. 'Turnips should never be pulled. It injures them. It is much better to send a boy up and let him shake the tree.' Now what do you think of that? For I really suppose you wrote it. Think of it? Why, I think it is good. I think it is sense. I have no doubt that every year millions and millions of bushels of turnips are spoiled in this township alone by being pulled in half-ripe condition, when if they had sent a boy up to shake the tree, "Shake your grandmother, turnips don't grow on trees." Oh, they don't they? Well, who said they did? The language was intended to be figurative, wholly figurative. Anybody that knows anything will know that I meant that the boy should shake the vine. Then this old person got up and tore his paper all into small shreds and stamped on them and broke several things with his cane and said I did not know as much as a cow, and then went out and banged the door after him, and in short acted in such a way that I fancied he was displeased about something, but not knowing what the trouble was, I could not be any help to him. Pretty soon after this, a long, cadaverous creature, with lanky locks hanging down to his shoulders and a weak stubble bristling from the hills and valleys of his face, darted within the door and halted motionless with finger on lip and head and body bent in listening attitude. No sound was heard, still he listened, no sound. Then he turned the key in the door and came elaborately tiptoeing towards me till he was within long-reaching distance of me, when he stopped and, after scanning my face with intense interest for a while, drew a folded copy of our paper from his bosom and said, "There, you wrote that? Read it to me, quick. Relieve me, I suffer." I read as follows, and as the sentences fell from my lips, I could see the relief come. I could see the drawn muscles relax, and anxiety go out of the face, and rest and peace steal over the features like the merciless moonlight over a desolate landscape. The guano is a fine bird, but great care is necessary in rearing it. It should not be imported earlier than June or late than September. In the winter it should be kept in a warm place where it can hatch out its young. It is evident that we are to have a backward season for grain. Therefore it will be well for the farmer to begin setting out his corn stalks and planting his buckwheat cakes in July instead of August. Concerning the pumpkin, this berry is a favorite with the natives of the interior of New England, who prefer it to the gooseberry for the making of fruit cake, and who likewise give it the preference over raspberry for feeding cows, as being more filling and fully as satisfying. The pumpkin is the only esculent of the orange family that will thrive in the north, except the gourd and one or two varieties of the squash, but the custom of planting it in the front yard with the shrubbery is fast going out of vogue, for it is now generally conceded that the pumpkin as a shade tree is a failure. Now, as the warm weather approaches and the ganders begin to spawn, the excited listener sprang towards me to shake hands and said, There, that will do. I know, I'm all right now, because you have read it just as I did, word for word. But stranger, when I first read it this morning and said to myself, I never believed it before, notwithstanding my friends kept under watch so strict. But now I believe I am crazy. And with that I fetched a howl that you might have heard 2 miles and started out to kill somebody, because, I knew it would come to that sooner or later, and so I might as well begin. I read one of them paragraphs over again so as to be certain, and then I burned my house down and started. I have crippled several people and have got one fella up a tree where I can get him if I want him, but I thought I would call in here as I passed along and make things perfectly certain, and now it is certain, and I tell you it is lucky for the chap that is in that tree. I should have killed him sure as I went back. Goodbye, sir, goodbye. You have taken a great load off my mind. My reason has stood the strain of one of your agricultural articles, and I know that nothing can ever unseat it now. Goodbye, sir. I felt a little uncomfortable about the cripplings and arsons this person had been entertaining himself with, for I could not help feeling remotely accessory to them, but these thoughts were quickly banished, for the regular editor walked in. I thought to myself, now if you had gone to Egypt as I recommended you to, I might have had a chance to get my hand in, but you wouldn't do it, and here you are. I sort of expected you. The editor was looking sad and perplexed and dejected. Thank you for listening and allowing me to practice Kitty's reporting voice for the big story ahead. Control AI DISARM. Now stay with me a few minutes longer if you're able. for the Next Peacelands. Podcasts usually have ads you fast forward through. This one doesn't. Instead, I invite you to pause here just for a few minutes and listen with an open heart, not to memorize the numbers, not to analyze the politics. As I read each conflict, I'll say aloud, "Peace is here." You're welcome to say it with me or just think it quietly. If you'd like to read, sing, or paint your own version of the Next Peacelands, or tell me how to say peace is here in your language, I'd love to hear it. This is the Next Peacelands. Not for doom and gloom, not for pity or sadness, we speak and we listen to these geographic locations of wars and the numbers of deaths of human souls to help put the great disarmament, the period in which we live now, and peace at the forefront of our daily consciousness and actions. Following are the major and minor armed conflicts, each with over 1,000 deaths in the current year, based on the data available as of December 2025. Russo-Ukrainian War since 2014, 400,000 cumulative fatalities, 69,177 deaths year-to-date. Peace is here. Arab-Israeli conflict since 1948, 263,000 cumulative fatalities, 25,100 deaths year-to-date. Peace is here. Sudanese conflicts since 2008, 1,400,000 cumulative fatalities, 19,867 deaths year-to-date. Peace is here. Islamist insurgencies in the Maghreb Sahel since 2002, 464,000 cumulative fatalities, 19,069 deaths year-to-date. Peace is here. Myanmar conflicts since 1948, 199,000 cumulative fatalities, 13,411 deaths year-to-date. Peace is here. Mexican drug war since 2006, 417,000 cumulative fatalities, 7,790 deaths year-to-date. Peace is here. Congolese conflicts since 1996, 211,600 cumulative fatalities, 6,860 deaths year-to-date. Peace is here. Ethiopian civil conflict since 2018, 610,000 cumulative fatalities, 5,563 deaths year-to-date. Peace is here. Somali civil war since 1991, over 1 million cumulative fatalities, 9,872 deaths year-to-date. Peace is here. Syrian conflict spillovers since 2011, 656,000 cumulative fatalities, 7,745 deaths year-to-date. Peace is here. Afghan conflict since 1978, 2,800,000 cumulative fatalities, 3,632 deaths year-to-date. Peace is here. Ecuadorian security crisis since 2018, 9,230 cumulative fatalities, 2,740 deaths year-to-date. Peace is here. Yemeni civil war crisis since 2011, 382,000 cumulative fatalities, 2,598 deaths year-to-date. Peace is here. Colombian-Venezuelan conflicts since 1964, 457,000 cumulative fatalities, 2,482 deaths year to date. Peace is here. Haitian crisis since 2018, 20,000 cumulative fatalities, 2,480 deaths year to date. Peace is here. Does that mean the countries that weren't mentioned are more peaceful? Some are, some are not. Here are the world's largest weapons exporters according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute's Arms Transfers Database. These numbers use TIV, the Trend Indicator Value, a measure based on the production cost of military equipment. The cumulative TIV figures you will hear represent the total volume of military resources transferred since 1950, while the percentage is based on the most recent 5-year trend. United States, cumulative exports of $729 billion, accounting for 43% of total global exports. Peace is here. France, cumulative exports of $136 billion, 9.6% of total global exports. Peace is here. Russia, cumulative exports of $155 billion, 7.8% of total global exports. Peace is here. China, cumulative exports of $61 billion, 6% of total global exports. Peace is here. Germany, cumulative exports of $90 billion, 5.6% of total global exports. Peace is here. Italy, cumulative exports of $37 billion, 4.8% of total global exports. Peace is here. United Kingdom, cumulative exports of $144 billion, 3.6% of total global exports. Peace is here.